I like that one. And what happened was she started going to the opera. Okay? And I'm saying to you, she was taking medicine. She was seeing the best neurologist. She was seeing a naturopath. She was taking the best herbs and changing her diet. And she was relaxing. But the best medicine for her was going to the opera. And get help to go to the opera. And she started going to the opera. Her life changed. She started getting happy again. And she stopped being somebody with multiple sclerosis in a wheelchair. And she started to get out of the wheelchair. That's anecdotal, but that's what healing is. It's reversing the process. That's Dean Ornish's program or approach is called reversing disease. By changing. By doing what's good. There's a line on my website that I like at the end, which is apropos that I remind myself now as I'm going to be joining everybody here soon, just in terms of joining the wise men, which is to add years to your life, add life to your years. And that's what you guys are doing. You know, I mean, this is like a summer camp. I'm going, I want to bowl, I want to play ping pong, you know, my competitive spirit's going. I want to beat the guys in bridge, I want to bowl a 200 game. I mean, what else is there, right? I mean, most of us, you know, we're working hard and we're doing, and the joy is out of it. So part of this, I mentioned the multiple sclerosis story because, you know, it's not easy to talk about the subject because I'm telling people I'm helping you face your pain that you've been avoiding and you don't want to deal with your whole life. But as Roger said, I try to make it a little humorous because what other choice do we have? Because not facing it, covering it up, just makes it worse. It festers. So let's go to the next slide. This was a quote that I did in an article that came out in a magazine. It's also on my website. And it says, in healing we live questions instead of answers. We hang out in the unknown. We trust the emergence of whatever will be. We trust the insight will come. The challenge in medicine is not the choice between one and the other. We need both. Okay? So that's the sense of integration. Go ahead to the next one. And then we're going to finish up and we'll take questions and discussion. Go ahead, next. Thanks, Mike. Next. Okay. I ask questions. Like, you ever get a line, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it? Yep. Most of us are just repeating our history because we now look inside. And so I ask people, how did you get like this? That person with psoriatic arthritis, our disease tells a story not just about our disease, but about who we are. If I have people listen and say, what is it about? How come your skin is getting irritated all the time? You know, it's going to come out that I'm fighting with my wife. And not to blame the wife, or that's the problem, but it's like, there's a connection. We try to make those connections, and we have to listen to the story. So healing is not just doing a bypass. Healing is treating the whole person as well and helping them heal. Next. And again, I'm not here to give you a whole expose on the science of it, but there's a lot of scientific literature examining clinical studies. They've done studies with women. And again, to validate you guys coming here every Thursday as the best medicine, they did a study of women with metastasized breast cancer, a retrospective. They looked back in time. And they saw a difference in how the recovery rate and the survival rates. And one group lived 18 months longer than another group with the same diagnosis, prescription, disease process, breast cancer that had metastasized. And the bottom line was that the main difference between the two groups was one group went to a support group. One group went and spoke the truth about their fears and their pains and their fear of dying or whatever happens in a support group. If anybody here, I know this church does a lot of 12-step meetings. What's a 12-step meeting? The person tells the truth and people listen. And what's the first step in recovery for any person with an addiction? Hi, my name is Joe and I'm an alcoholic. And almost proudly to state the truth. Right? To come to that. And if you don't come to that truth, however painful it may be, that's the starting point for recovery, the first step. Why is that process not the same when I have a stomach ache or a backache or a headache? Why is it just what's going on in my body and not my life? So these things, I think, slowly over time will be integrated. Most hospitals now are integrating integrative medicine. They do it in Greenwich, they're doing it at Stanford, they do it in North. They may not be doing it to the level that I'm talking about. Integration is now, okay, we have a nutritionist as well as a medical doctor. We do herbs, but I'm taking it, I think, to maybe another level of really engaging the person to look inside themselves. So this is two things. I'm gonna mention this, and then we'll stop from here. And I wanted to mention one more thing in closing that I had shared with Roger, that Roger shared to my group at the Senior Center. This is Carl Jung. Now, most of the reasons that we lead lifestyles, like we do the same thing over and expect a different result, that's insanity. Whether we smoke, or we drink, or we fight, or we argue, we're just caught in the same patterns. That's called neuroses. We're neurotic. It's fine, we're all neurotic a little bit, okay? But Carl Jung, when I saw this quote years ago, it just hit me as like, my God, that's what's going on. All neuroses is a substitute for legitimate suffering. My father, back to him, had legitimate suffering. When he was on the battlefields in World War II, nobody was whispering in his ear, listen, Marty, this is going to be hard for you later in life, and these are going to be tough memories that are going to cause you nightmares and freak you out watching people's heads blown off or whatever, and I want to help you deal with that now. That's not what happened. What happened was he was there and he had to survive, and he had to get through it, and he carried it around with him, and it caused all of his issues. And eventually, you know, dying on an operating table, having open heart surgery, that was his life. So he had legitimate suffering. That there was no way around that, you know? It's not like, oh, well, we tried to bypass it. We couldn't, you know? No judgment or blame, it's just the nature of the beast, as I understand. And so then there's another line, this is from a meditation teacher, which, you know, if we get to our age, we kind of know that life is wonderful, and it's joyful, and it's fantastic, and let's have fun. We also know that life is suffering, and there's a lot of pain, and it's hard, and it's tough. You know, a person in an audience once I was teaching and talking about healing, and he was looking like, you know, I'm not here to present some pie in the sky, oh, heal yourself kind of stuff. And he looked, he said, wow, healing is tough stuff. I said, yeah, it's tough stuff. And this is the essence of it. Viktor Frankl wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning. He survived the Holocaust. He said, everything can be taken from a person but one thing, the right to choose one's own way in any given set of circumstances. So what I've learned is not only facing painful truth is liberating, but having choices is liberating. She could go to the opera or not. She had a choice. Tuesdays with Maury had a choice. I was sharing with Roger the movie The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. The guy could only move his right eyelid. And to watch that, and he wrote a book, and he told jokes. And he wrote by blinking his eye. It's particularly inspiring for me because I've been trying to write a book, and I got both eyes and both hands. And I'm crazy. You know, I'd rather play golf. Okay. So this is the line I want to leave with, end with, and then have a discussion and Q&A. There are two kinds of suffering. The suffering that leads to more suffering. That's kind of keep doing the same thing over and over. And our illness is the opportunity telling us to do something different. Look at your life. Not judge or blame or victim, but you can empower yourself. Go to the wise men, play golf, go to the opera, follow your list, do the bucket list. If you and the suffering that leads to the end of suffering. Okay, Bill Clinton, you can tell people that you didn't have sex with Monica Lewinsky. Suffering that leads to more suffering. Or you can tell them I did have sex with Monica Lewinsky. The suffering that leads to the end of suffering. A-Rod, you can lie about using steroids, or you can tell the truth. And you'll have the suffering that leads to the end of suffering. That's your choice. If you are not willing to face the second kind of suffering, you will surely continue to experience the first. So as a doctor, holistically speaking, I want to cure them of every pain they have and see that they have the right doctor and everything in their suit. But I'm also seeing human beings in pain and suffering that can make a choice to face the second kind of suffering. The suffering that leads to salvation. Now, I'm Jewish, but I get instructions from the life of Christ from the standpoint of somebody who, what does he say when he's on the cross? First he says, forgive them, they know not what they do. And then he says to God, thy will be done. Okay, I'm the Son of God. And he's suffering, and he's in pain, and he's been betrayed, and all of that, and he's choosing that path. I mean, that's what I think he's saying. Choose, that's life. Each one of us has our own bearing of burdens.